and welcome to the SSLP talk about stained glass windows and thinking about talk, looking at the arts and crafts behind stained glass window making. Can I just say thank you to Helen for speaking this evening. It's going to be really interesting in finding out a little bit more about the craft behind stained glass window and also the subject matter, which I think has changed significantly since going back to when I was a boy and what I could see in churches around the country. Can I also say thank you to Kit and also Theo, who are going to be our hosts for this evening. They're primed and ready to go. And so hopefully we can find out a bit more about what they believe and what they think about stained glass window making, because at DC, we're lucky enough to have a stained glass window in our lower hall. And it was fitted a couple of years ago, and it's transformed that darker space into something much better, much brighter, much fresher, which is absolutely fantastic. Can I also say thank you, because a couple of years ago in 2019, both Art and DT were lucky enough to go on a visit to Helen's workshop. And I was quite surprised when they returned a couple of days later by the absolutely amazing work that they produced. And not just the professionalism of the finished article, but the craftsmanship behind it. I know that they went on display in the college, and I had a lot of good feedback from that. So without further ado, can I hand you over to Helen, who's going to be talking all about stained glass windows and the arts and crafts behind it. So over to you, Helen.
Well, it's brilliant to be here. Really quite excited about kind of being part of this event, certainly with my links with Dulwich College. For those who don't know me, my name's Helen and I'm a professional stained glass artist and director to Barley Studio. At Bali Studio, we're lucky enough to design new windows and restore historic windows from the medieval period to the Victorian period. I also work alongside a super team of craftspeople who are highly skilled in all different areas of stained glass. So it really is a group effort. We also get to work with other artists, craftspeople and architects, which takes us to many great places all over the UK and beyond. So to begin, I thought I'd show you a few examples of the wide range of styles of stained glass that you can find in all sorts of places. And some of them you'll be familiar with, as James said, in churches, and some of them you may not. On this slide, you can see medieval and modern windows from Canterbury Cathedral and Coventry Cathedral. And then you can see this unusual plexiglass window, water tower window in New York. So this is kind of, as James was mentioning, what you might see and what you didn't even think you'd dream of seeing. In my talk today, I'd like to show you how windows are made and the amazing opportunities that come with our profession and how you can get involved in our wonderful art and craft. So, have you ever entered a space that was brought to life by coloured light? As you see in the slide, hopefully, the natural light streaming through the coloured glass at certain times of the day creates a spectacular effect. So you can see these two windows and how the light is streaming through and actually shining on the floor, which is quite beautiful. Also, when you look closer, some stained glass may tell a story or have layers of interest and meaning. But either way, it is very beautiful and uplifting and definitely worth a further look. Stained glass is also a great career option, and it might surprise you that if you are interested in design, art, craft, architecture, engineering, chemistry, history, archaeology, culture, religion, our profession embraces them all. So perhaps this is a good moment to actually ask, what is stained glass? Well, it's a translation of a design, which you see in the top left, which is my watercolour design, into a real object, which you see on the right of the slide. Stained glass is both an art and a craft. It's the art and the creation of ideas and images And it's also a craft, as these images can be translated into stained glass windows. And what's fascinating is that some of our tools, materials and techniques have not changed since the medieval period, such as how our glass is made, the leads that we use, the paint and stains which we add to make a surface texture. So let's just look a bit closer at this slide. So as I mentioned, in the top left, you see my watercolor design. We have a tree and there's an owl to the right, and then the roots kind of fall into the base of the window. To the right, you see a Photoshop image, which was very helpful for the technique I'm about to tell you, because in this slide, I'm not only using traditional stained glass, which is glass and lead, I'm also using fusing, which is actually melting glass together to create amazing effects. So if you look on the bottom left slide, you'll see loads of powder. That's actually lots of different colours which will go into a kiln and melt together to create the beautiful images you see on the right of the leaves and the yellows and the oranges. But what's quite exciting for me is the new technique of fused glass with the old technique of leading that you see in the centre have been brought together in this commission. I was lucky enough to go out to America to work with Narcissus Pugliata on this commission, who is a master in fused glass. So again, a wonderful opportunity. We also have water jet cutting, as you see with the snowflake on the left. And that's quite incredible because you can get shapes that you could never do with a glass cutter. So you can see all the little holes within the glass that would make naturally. We also have digital printing, which creates these beautiful coloured leaves on the glass. And then we have etching, which you see by a window by Tracy Shepherd. And that's a really fine kind of drill, which is actually creating all this beautiful effect on the clear glass you see here, or on flash glass. But what's really amazing about stained glass is that it can be found everywhere in buildings all around the world. Not only where you might expect it, like churches and cathedrals, historic buildings and museums, but also in modern structures, like you see here in this station in Taiwan by Narcissus. We have the Victorian Quarters Shopping Centre in Leeds by Brian Clark, and we have Coleridge College, Cambridge, UK by Martin Donlin. So there's quite an expanse of different types of glass on a huge scale. Much contemporary glass, often on a large scale, is called architectural glass. It is usually devised in collaboration with artists, architects and engineers, and often uses unusual techniques to create spectacular glass facades and roofs. So we see again on the slide, we've got the bottom right, which is Miami Airport with the coloured glass shining through the windows. To the top right is the Sage, which is an art centre in Gateshead, and you can see how the colour of the blue take you round the space. And then we have the Institute of Sound and Vision in the Netherlands. The glass facade of the Institute is based on original TV pictures, which were taken from the archives of the Institute. And they were translated into 2,100 different coloured high relief glass panels composed by graphic designer Jack Drugstein. It created the quality of light transmitting through contemporary stained glass, but gave the building a lightly tactile surface where iconic images of Dutch TV history appear and disappear during the changing light of the day. So I've never seen this building, but I'd be fascinated to see, because it looks as blur at the moment, how these images come forward. Churches and cathedrals throughout the country are also full of wonderful ancient and contemporary stained glass. Scientists are working alongside conservators, that's the craftspeople who care for these windows, to develop new techniques to study our historic glass. And this can help our understanding of the time and the place where the ancient glass has come from. Here we see to your right a material scientist testing glass that dates back to the 12th century, nearly 900 years ago. Scientists also impacts on modern glass materials, with new recipes being developed to block harmful ultraviolet radiation from sunlight. Scientists also help us to understand and monitor the environment within our buildings and how this can affect our historic glass and other objects. And you know from a lot of things that you see how light can fade objects. So that's a really big threat to a lot of our works. So what's appealing about stained glass in the 21st century? Well, as you can see in the past few slides, stained glass and architectural glass is widely accessible in many public spaces and major buildings. There is no shortage of opportunities to discover it. And it's also permanent. Unlike many modern building materials, it can be made energy efficient and its materials are recyclable. And it's also good for you. The light pouring through these windows creates more than visual effects. It can also have a biological and psychological effect that impact on your health and well-being. And this can happen, note, with the light of your mobile phone, the red and amber light having a calming influence and the blue and white light keeping you awake. Stained glass has the power to be dramatic, to be colourful, poetic, decorative, life-enhancing, and intensely spiritual. It can cover huge ideas and great spaces, such as the window you see here at Coventry Cathedral. Its impact can be direct or filled with layers of detail, meaning and rich stories, which are all brought together by light. And this is one of my favourite windows by John Piper and Patrick Renshins. And what was fantastic about this is Coventry Cathedral was bombed essentially, and they created this amazing modern cathedral to house this amazing modern glass. And this was a really big turning point in our profession. Today, creativity in stained glass covers the complete spectrum of experience, from conservation and repair, where you might find yourself working on the ancient glass of Canterbury Cathedral, or this 16th century glass that Barley Studios worked at in Fairford, Gloucestershire. So do take a minute to check out these devils. I mean, not only are they amazing to look at, but the techniques they were doing back in the 16th century are quite incredible. No, the eyes on the devil, the blue devil, and how they were actually bored into the glass and then lead was inserted in them, the jewelling, which is still hard to do today, hence water jet cutting. More recently, we can see the creation of cutting-edge new work in many different contexts, often very surprising ones. Dominic Wilcox's stained glass car is one of those surprises. He began to think about what cars might look like in the future if they didn't need a driver or safety features like airbags. Dominic decided to create a sort of sleeper car, which you can actually see bottom left. I didn't notice this, he's actually in there, so you can just see his head, where you can just actually lie down, read a book or go to sleep, and the car will take you to your destination. Stained glass making and conservation is also part of the wider programme of cultural industries in which Britain is a world leader. Think of British innovation and creativity in fashion, music, and all kinds of architecture, writing, fine art, and so on. Recently, I was very pleased to be invited to support the government-led Britain is Great campaign promoting Britain's skills, being craft, worldwide. Today, we also have a lot of historic buildings to look after, protect and enhance, and we need craftspeople with lots of different skills to help preserve our heritage, such as those who are working in stone, wood, glass and metal. So how do I approach my work? Well, when I've been asked to create a window for a particular setting, whether it's in a church, as you see to the left, or in a club, such as the RAF Club on the right, I am inspired by a wide range of things. I'm inspired by the client's brief, which certainly with the window at the RAF Club was to celebrate women in the RAF, for which the Queen, which you see gazing in there, actually was part of. And I'm also interested in the space around the window. And this may result in my designs telling a story, be symbolic or decorative. And that's what's quite exciting about this profession. I'm just going to give you some more examples because glass can be decorative. So we have a panel in the home, which is a waterfall to the left. There's a panel that I exhibited in Hong Kong, which is in the middle, which is quite interesting because that uses lots of old and new techniques such as acid etching, which is the red circle in the center. You actually work away the color to reveal the clear glass beneath, which is rather good. And then to the right, I have interesting commissions such from architects who like architects like Scarpa, and then Urs Woolley, which is a Scottish cartoon character. So I'm asked to try and combine the two. So what are the processes involved in my work? Well, it starts with the design, and then we create a cartoon, which you can see the pencil drawing in the middle, which is a large size drawing of what the actual window is going to look like. From there, we do a cut line, which essentially outlines what the different colour pieces are going to be, which you can see on the right with one of our team cutting a piece of yellow glass over those outlines. And then at the base, you see myself painting glass paints onto the glass, which are fired in a kiln so they become permanent. And then bottom right, you see how all the pieces of glass, whether they're painted or unpainted, are held together in a lead cane, which is a H section, and then soldered together and made waterproof. So the process is extremely labour intensive and very much an art and a craft. The window, of course, is then cemented to make it watertight. And most importantly, when you're designing, if it's going in a window, there's got to be a good support structure as well, so it doesn't fall out. You may wonder what a workplace looks like. Well, it could be your garden shed, a studio, a museum, or a cathedral. The workplace really can be all shapes and sizes. Bali Studios in York is a large independent studio founded in 1973. And as I mentioned here, we're lucky enough to make both new windows and conserve historic windows in the UK and around the world. And our international team comprises of school leavers, apprentices, and college and university graduates with a range of specialist skills in glass, lead, wood, metal, and stone. And we work with many outside expert consultants, and we train apprentices and work placements from the UK and abroad. So in the slide we have, to the left, we have myself and the director of the company, Keith Barley. And what's fortunate is we've got this wonderful mezzanine where we can look down on a huge light table at all the different coloured sheets that you see there to decide what we're going to use for the commission. And in the middle, you see Daniel Thomas, our glazier, who's actually restoring an old window. So he's putting horseshoe nails round a very old piece of glass, and then he's going to put a new perimeter lead. And then we have in the back another member of our team, Alison Gilchrist, who's doing the conservation of some 16th century glass. So it really is a mixed bag of things that are happening. And as we mentioned about Dulwich, so what is exciting about this profession? Well, I love making new work which builds on the past and moves it forward. My commission work gives me huge inspiration as an artist to explore creativity. It helps me engage directly and share ideas with clients, architects, art historians, scientists, craftspeople, students, and the public. As you see on the slide, here are some of the boys from Dulwich College who assisted me in creating a window for their lower hall celebrating 400 years of the school. The boys also attended a workshop here at Barley Studio where they were given the opportunity to make their own stained glass panels. And you can see their efforts on the bottom right of the screen, which were quite incredible because they worked very hard and they really had to home in on being an artist and a craftsman and generally hard slog for quite a few days. So congratulations again to the boys who did these panels. Commissions like this also allow me to learn more about history and symbolism, trends and fashions from past centuries, and wider symbolism from other periods and cultures. And with all this information, I also love how we can create a tangible and beautiful artwork which will last for centuries. Working with stained glass has opened so many doors for me and created opportunities I wouldn't have dreamed about. I've met and worked with famous artists like David Hockney, who you see on the slide, who created a design on his iPad, and which I translated into stained glass for Westminster Abbey. This was an amazing experience that I'll never forget, including the opportunity to actually go and see him at his home in California to progress the design further. I love travel and working on site, and as you can see, my work has taken me all over the UK and further afield. However, I do have a warning for you at the end of this, that you may need to be able to work at heights. Now, I don't have an image of the site here, but you can certainly see the scale of David Hockney to the window behind him. These windows are very tall. So I must climb ladders and scaffolding to take measurements and templates and remove and install windows. Ultimately, though, I do what I love and I get paid for it. There are several possible pathways into stained glass and architectural glass. So how can you learn more about stained glass and architectural glass? Higher education, such as colleges and universities, adult education, evening classes and courses, studying fine art, art history, architecture, or even interior design. History and chemistry are also helpful, especially if you're interested in conservation and restoration. And it's increasingly a diverse and inclusive craft and profession. We welcome anyone with talent, creative energy, skill, and technical knowledge. So some of the universities offering pathways into glass are Swansea College of Art, which has an 80-year reputation in glass. They deliver stained glass education to all levels, from school children, evening classes, undergrad and postgrad, as well as the new and exciting apprenticeship scheme. We also have the University of Sunderland, in collaboration with the National Glass Centre, offers learning and creative opportunities at all levels, from community workshops to undergrad and postgraduate degrees. And this is actually where I did my undergrad many years ago. The University of York is the leading centre for art history, medieval studies and architectural conservation. And these subjects come together in their postgraduate course in stained glass conservation and heritage management. And in terms of work placements and competitions, I'm pleased to say that I am a liveryman of the Worshipful Company of Glaziers in London, which is a group of people working in or interested in glass. And the Glaziers Company provides some brilliant scholarships, internships and competitions. You see here 4 recent awardees who were able to go to various studios around the country to get very valuable work experience in the profession of glass. And I actually did my work experience here at Barley Studio nearly 30 years ago while studying at Sunderland University and the Prince of Wales Institute of Architecture. So it really is very important to get that work experience early on, because you never know where it's going to lead. The Glaziers Stevens competition is great for budding artists. It offers new designers and craftspeople the opportunity to develop their skills in stained glass. There are several cash prizes to be won, as well as the possibility of winning a real commission. And you can see the varied commissions available. We have one in a church by Louise Hemmings, the RAC Club London by Anne-Catherine Peru, and Eastbourne College by Jessica Lambernet. I entered this competition again many years ago and actually was fortunate to win some prizes and get one of my first major commissions. The Reflections of the Lord Mayor organisation offers a prize in the Glaziers Stevens competition specifically for 16 to 24-year-olds. And they also run the primary school stained glass roundel competition for young people up to year 6 in schools in the UK. Budding artists are invited to design a roundel to celebrate the work of the Lord Mayor of London, with the winning design made into glass. In terms of museums, we have some wonderful collections of glass in places like the Ely Stained Glass Museum, which has an inspirational collection of stained glass from the medieval to the modern, as you see here. It's also a great place to do short courses on stained glass. There's also collections in the Victoria and Albert Museum in London and the British Museum, the Burrell Collection in Glasgow, Birmingham Art Gallery, and many more. And there are also many societies supporting artists and craftspeople, like the Contemporary Glass Society and the British Society of Master Glass Painters, who both exhibit their members' work. And you can also learn more about our art and craft by visiting the website Visit Stained Glass, and several others dedicated to showcasing stained glass. And then there's webinars such as this available on the internet from the Glaziers Company and other organisations and artists. So I'm here today as the Worshipful Company of Glaziers and its charitable foundation have formed a Glaziers Education Partnership, and we will continue to deliver events in partnership with various organisations, glass studios and workshops. So it's super to be able to kind of launch our initiative here today. So I'd like to finish with saying that stained glass is firmly rooted in the past, but continues to point towards the future. And it's to enjoy even if you're just looking at it, and offers lots of opportunities for people like you to learn new and old skills and to make your mark on our history and heritage. If you'd like to know more, please contact the coordinator of this event, and thank you for listening.
Thanks, that was really interesting. I think we'll go to a Q&A now. So everyone can just ask questions in the Q&A function down at the bottom. I'll start with one of my own. I was wondering, how do you make the glass coloured? Because obviously most glass is clear. So how do you get it to be coloured?
That's a very good question, Theo, in that we, the stained glass people, don't actually colour the glass ourselves. So you've heard of glass blowers, and you see how they gather the molten glass and they actually add the colour to it. So it's in the form of oxides. So cobalt would produce blue and manganese would produce pink. So we get the actual glass coloured to us. It comes from all over the world. It comes from the UK, Germany, France, China and Poland. And they come in sheets essentially. And then we're able to cut out the different parts that we want. So yeah, we don't actually colour it, but what we do is stain it. So you've heard the term stained glass, and that's like a yellow colour that we add to the glass that stains it, but it's only a yellow colour. So really, it's kind of a term that's stuck, but not all the glass you see is actually stained. But yeah, we don't actually colour the glass. But certainly with the modern architectural pieces that you saw, the colour can be applied on the actual clear glass as well. So, you know, you've got your coloured glass that we've said that the glass blowers make, but then we can actually put things on clear glass like glass enamels, coloured enamels and digital printing. So there's two kind of avenues into it really. There's the product, which is the coloured glass, and there's the clear glass with the different layers on it.
Thank you. That was really interesting. I didn't know how that happened. It's quite a unique process, I guess. I've got a question on how do you cut glass? Because typically it's quite I'm not an expert in this, and it's quite hard to get it without it fracturing or cracking. And how do you get it so it's so accurately curved and in such unique shapes?
Yeah, so you use a glass cutter, which hasn't really changed since the should I say in the medieval time, they used to have a hot poker, and they'd run the hot line along the glass and crack it and then nibble it away. But then we started using diamonds. As you probably remember, the diamond used to cut the glass, but we can also use tungsten steel wheel cutters. So it is literally a wheel, and it's like a pen, and you just run it across the glass surface, and then you tap underneath and a crack appears. So you can get quite accurate shapes just from using a tungsten wheel glass cutter. But if you want really clever shapes, then water jetting is used, which I showed in one of the slides earlier. But you essentially score the glass and then you tap it underneath, and you'll see the crack kind of run, as it were, from one end of the glass to the other, which creates a fracture.
Thanks. So I'll ask another, or to wait for some other questions. How long does it typically take to make a big commission?
It's We usually say a year, and that's not necessarily because of the production on our part, but often these windows go through various committees. Certainly for churches, there's a lot of people who have to approve the design before the actual production starts. Yeah, I mean, you'd say a year. It also depends on the kind of team that you have available. I mean, at Bali Studios, we have a large team that can deliver these windows. So perhaps some people on their own don't necessarily have that support. And it also depends what type of window it is, because certainly architectural glass can be made by you know, large firms as well, who have a huge kind of outlet there. So it can vary, but it's certainly not a quick thing. It's not a quick operation. It's very labor intensive.
Thank you. That's again, it's very interesting. We're just going to keep it flowing until the audience start coming up with some questions. So I'm particularly interested actually in what do you use as inspiration for your stained glass for your commissions? I mean, of course, you know, if it's a church, they'll probably ask you of what they want, but if you're doing something, say, of your own bat, what do you use as inspiration?
I really like working to commission work because I like the briefs that I'm given, and they kind of make me explore all different avenues that I wouldn't normally do, say, left to my own devices. So from the work I've shown you, it's quite varied what I create. You know, some of them are quite abstract, some of them are quite figurative or representational. So yeah, I quite enjoyed the commission process, really. So yeah. Does that answer your question? Sorry, was there? And also, I suppose I'm also influenced by, I'm influenced by art greatly. So when I was younger, I did fine art painting. So there's a lot of artists that I like. I'm trying to think what else. It's the building as well, and people, all these factors that come from commission work inspire me. But what I'm trying to do is create a picture. The worst thing for stained glass is when you're given a brief and then somebody puts loads of objects dangling in a hole. Somehow I want them to be part of a picture, and I want them to engage the viewer, whether that's in a spiritual way or just through you know, a beautiful thing to look at.
Thanks. We have a question from the audience. So Ruth wants to know a bit more about the water jetting technique. So sort of like what it looks like, and yeah, just more detail on that, please.
And well, I don't do water jetting, so I use the traditional glass cutting technique. But there are people, an artist called Vanessa Cutler, who does a lot of water jet cutting, who would be a good person to ask. But it basically, through how it operates, it enables you to cut intricate shapes that you wouldn't necessarily do, because it's not, I guess, putting the tension as much on the human hand would. So you can get all different unusual shapes, but I've never done it as yet.
We've got another question from the Q&A, and they're asking what makes a good commission. Just interested if, you know, I think they just want to know what you.
I think every commission is good in the sense that that person has got to the stage where they're wanting to create something from nothing. So the idea to commission something, I think, is a wonderful thing to start off with. Yeah, it's and then from there, as I said before, every commission kind of triggers something different to me, and that could be talking to the person who's delivering it, or looking at the space, or thinking about the light. There's all different factors that make me respond to each commission differently. And for me, that's what keeps my profession interesting, because all my windows are very different.
I was wondering, why do you use LED? Like, so that goes around the glass, does it? But yeah, what's really the purpose of that?
Well, lead, as you know, is quite poisonous, which isn't helpful, and we have tried to find different materials to compensate it. But what is amazing about lead is it's very malleable. And it works very nicely with stained glass, so nothing else has quite matched it. And also, it's proven for centuries as well. It's been used since the medieval period, so it's kind of a proven material that's held our windows together, pretty well.
We've got another question from the audience again. It's an anonymous attendee, so I don't know what their name is, but they're asking, are most commissions still from churches, which is obviously the more traditional way, or are you finding wider collection of commissioners?
I think there are a lot still from churches, but as you've seen with architectural glass and the advances in technology, a lot of architects are using it for airports, shopping malls, and all sorts of places. So I think because we're advancing in so many ways, we're able to work everywhere, really. But certainly a lot of my commissions have been churches and cathedrals, but I have done a lot for private buildings as well.
Another question from the audience. Joanne is asking, when you paint on the glass and it's fired in the kiln, what temperature do you use? And does this alter the structure of the glass?
So when you actually paint on the paint, first of all, is an iron oxide, which is rust. And that's actually painted on the surface of the glass, but it's got a very fine glass powder mixed with it. So when you mix it up with water and paint it, when it's heated to 650 degrees approximately, the iron oxide and the glass frit just sticks to the surface, so it fuses to the surface of the glass. Now, that doesn't change the composition of the glass as long as it's actually fired correctly. But certainly in the past, there's been issues with deterioration of paint for various reasons. And that's why a lot of our windows have needed to be protected, because the paint hasn't actually fired to the glass. But we're hoping that the paint today will stay.
We've got another question from the audience again. There is another anonymous attendee. They're asking, what was the best thing about working with David Hockney, and have you worked with other artists, and also what can be the problems as you try to work out your end result, for example, like clashes between your decisions and who wants what?
I've worked with David Hockney, and I've also worked with Hughie O'Donoghue, who's a Royal Academist, and I did some windows in the East Chapel of Westminster with him back in 2013. And I don't think I've come across a clash in the sense that it's hopefully a meeting of minds. And as long as you have a mutual respect for the artist and the craftsperson, in my case, translating their artworks, I think it's actually quite a rewarding process. I certainly enjoyed working with both of them incredibly, and David Hockney, I mean, amazing chap, very down to earth. And when I went over to California, I thought I'd be staying in a hotel, and when I arrived, the door opened and he was sat there having his dinner and called me across. So that kind of shows you the down to earth elements of his character. But yeah, I've found both experiences brilliant. I've also liked kind of their different take on our profession as well, because there's a danger with stained glass that you can become very focused in the craft and lose the creativity. So working with great painters such as David and Hughie kind of keeps the mind open, which I think is very important.
Thanks. Another question from me. I was wondering, have you ever dropped one of your pieces or something, or damaged or something? So obviously glass can break very easily.
Yeah, that's a great question. Yes, I have, and you learn not to do it again. Basically, you learn to be very careful. But there are times when it does happen, and we are only human. But you tend to know what to do and what not to do. But certainly, even times on site, there's things that might happen that sometimes you have no control over. But generally, we try not to break the glass, except for when we need to.
I was just wondering, have you ever used any other metals in a piece and used it in the finished product, or has it always been lead? Or I know you said you tried with them, but have you ever actually finished any pieces with them?
No, I haven't. What I do is I also make sculpture. I've not shown any today, but I use copper and glass together. So I've done quite a few artworks in hospitals, such as prayer trees in their chapel. So, you know, you can hold it together, but they've mainly been inside. But, you know, you can use copper to hold windows together as well, but I've not actually experimented with that. But certainly in sculpture, I love copper and glass together. I think it's a beautiful kind of fusion.
So I think that's going to be it then. I'll hand over to Kit to finish it off.
Well, yeah, thank you so much for coming. It's been a real pleasure to hear what your thoughts on stained glass, because it's really opened our minds, I think, towards stained glass moving in the right direction, because, you know, it's been around for a very long time, and it appeared, I didn't know that it was developing into a new thing, because I guess you don't really notice when it's in a train station. You just it sort of fades into the background a little bit, and but yeah, it's been really enjoyable to listen to your thoughts, and thanks to the audience and everyone for their questions. They've been really interesting, and of course thanks to Katie for organising the whole thing.